Mountain bike brand Mondraker has a brand new gravel bike. Its first ever, the Arid. Mondraker also has a relatively new office here in Boulder. So I thought I would stop in, check out the bike, and talk to the folks about what's new with this new Mondraker Arid. Good morning, Nico.
This is our building. We opened our doors in, I think, January of this year, so pretty new. Super stoked to have our US headquarters in Boulder, Colorado. We run all of our demo fleet out of this building. So we do service, so we have Shane Hensley here, the wonderful head of technical service. These are all the fancy bikes that we're sending back to Europe that we're gonna talk about later. Then we also have our showroom upstairs and offices. So super small team. US is 6 people total. Myself, US marketing manager, Shane, who you met, Mike, who is operations and sales, Eric Richter, who will make an appearance, who is our director of marketing, sorting through beanies right now.
Speaking of hats, you wear many hats. You've got a hat on your head there, and you're also wearing the hat.
Model extraordinaire.
Love that shot with the flat irons in the background.
It's great. It's Dowdy draw. Yes, everyone's a rider here. Everyone's super passionate about bikes. So when we do our campaigns, we like to put the people in front of the camera.
Absolutely. Real people doing real things.
Yeah. We're just like you know? Full showroom here. So predominantly a mountain bike brand. This will be our first drop bar bike. No, we will not make a road bike. It's definitely a gravel bike with a mountain bike attitude. This is what we do. We feel that gravel bikes should come from people who have been riding dirt for a really long time and off-road. So you'll see that in our development. We specialize, I would say, one of the leading brands in e-bikes. So you'll see we've been in e-bikes for 10, 11 years. So ahead of the game for a lot of US companies. This is a Spanish company, though, I should say. That's the comparison I was making. But full line of e-bikes, from full powered to lightweight e-bikes to gravel e-bikes as well. So this was, I should say, I guess, this is technically our first drop bar bike, the Dusty. Definitely huge in the European market. Can be used as a commuter, can be used as the gravel bike just to go a bit faster and further. Can be used as, your daily driver, something maybe a little bit more capable. My favorite spec is definitely the commuter, the fender, and the flat bar. I like a flat bar gravel bike for sure. But yeah, that was kind of our intro into gravel. We used it to do a lot of testing, and you'll see a lot of the similarities show up in the Arid bike, which we'll get into deep conversation shortly.
Here we have the new.
The new.
Mondraker's first ever
non-e
gravel bike.
Yes. So this is the Arid, our take on a gravel bike. So definitely an off-road persona. Mondraker is a mountain bike company at its core. We will always be. So this is a gravel bike, I like to say, with a mountain bike attitude. I think that kind of makes people's mind go to, oh, well, where's the suspension, you know? Where's the compliance? And it's not a Franken bike. It is a normal bike that can withstand speed and bumps, and does have compliance, but nothing hidden secretly. So no shock in the front. You'll see some of the kind of design elements that we can talk about when we move through the bike that add a little bit of compliance.
We'll just throw some numbers at us for big picture.
Okay.
As far as what does mountain bike attitude mean in terms of head tube angle or tire clearance?
Yeah. Tire clearance, we're keeping with the trend for sure. So the bike is spec'd to hold 50C tires. I would say that's very generous. Everyone's pushing the envelope on, if a bike says 45 or 47, everyone's like, well, what kind of mountain bike tire can I put on there and how much tread? Yeah. I have not tested past 50 yet, but I can't wait to add a little flair to this. 50 with a lot of clearance around it, yep. Which I think has become really important, not just, squeezing a tire in there. This is our top of the line bike. So 4 different models. This is our Arid RSL. So race ready, super light is how I think about it in my head. And that's kind of what we talk about here. All of the frames, we don't skimp, so it's all the same carbon. So all quality carbon across all 4 frames. It's just really components that look a little bit different on some of the bikes. So top of the line bike is spec'd with the new Zip 303 Explorer wheels, Explorer group set. So super light, super capable, very much kind of fitting into that mountain bike kind of gearing. All one by.
I was about to say, I don't see
all one by, and
place for a front rail to go. So.
Nope.
Numbers, head tube is 70 degrees?
70,
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so definitely like on the slacker end of...
It is, thing. So yeah, so a little bit of slacker, but nothing crazy. We're kind of known for our forward geometry, so pioneers of forward geometry. This isn't a bike that's gonna be, I guess you can, but it's not that typical road setting where maybe you're gonna like put a 140 stem on it. We spec the stems, I wanna say it's a 60, this is a medium ML.
Right.
So 5 different sizes in the line. So ML is a 70 millimeter stem, small is 60, large is also 70, and then you go up to 90 for an XL.
Forward geometry being Mondraker's term for what other
for
people
more
call
weight.
Progressive geometry is like a much longer top tube, shorter stem.
Much longer top tube, shorter stem, weight kind of over the front, more stability there. We've been doing it for 20 years. You've seen people now starting to do that in the last 10 years. It's nothing wild, but we wanted to make sure that we're bringing that into our gravel bike and not just keeping it on our mountain bike.
What is wild is the frame design. There's all sorts of different aesthetically looking pieces. What is the functionality for some of these? Like maybe a start up front on the fork. Do you have a cute name for this curving elephant
its
tusk?
Little foot at the bottom?
For a little toe out? What is
No, we don't. I mean, there's a mixture. It's a compliance story and it's an aesthetic. So Mondraker definitely does not skimp on aesthetic and design. Mm-hmm. We make super sleek, really pretty bikes. And then just adding a little bit of flair. So sometimes it's just adding something that's slightly different that doesn't make it more complicated for the customer as well. So, I think a lot of brands have added slightly different pieces that sometimes make it proprietary, and then it looks great when you're leaving the shop, and then it's really hard when you need to come back to the shop consistently.
Sure.
So we add little flair in the design. So yes, the front, it is a bike that is not just designed for racing, so you can see some mounting places for racks and storage bags. So it's a bike that can go super far if you're into bike packing. We also have, I think, where the seat stay meets is kind of a fun little design. So that does add there is a little bit of a compliance story there. This is also a design piece that you'll see in all of our mountain bikes. So if you look at our F podium, you'll see that in the front of the bike. It's a piece that we just thought we'd bring to the back of the bike and also add a little bit of, stickiness and comfort over small rocks there. Nothing super crazy, a little bit of a thicker kind of down tube here. We do have storage.
Eric, you've been in the bike industry a long time, ridden a lot of bikes, a lot of different places. What is different about the Mondraker frame compared to the other gravel bikes out there, of which there are a lot?
Yeah. A couple things that I feel make this bike unique. The balance of forward geometry, which touched on a little bit earlier. It doesn't take that concept as far as we see on mountain bikes, but it does have an element of it. So longer top tubes, longer reach figures than you would normally find, paired with a shorter stem. For me, for instance, I typically ride a 54-55. I ride a medium large, which has an effective top tube, I think, of 58. But with a shorter stem, 70 mil stem, as opposed to something that's in the 100, 110 range for me. From saddle to bar, I wind up with almost identical numbers to a more traditional bike. But what I get is a more balanced fit on the bike, and a bike that feels more planted than anything I've ever ridden with drop bars, which I love, because when you're going fast downhill, the bike just feels more controlled. You feel more balanced in terms of leaning into corners, exiting corners. It's a unique feel, but one that you come to appreciate really quickly.
You use the term planted. I use that term also, and for me, some of that is a progressive top tube, but a lot of it is like a low BB. Mm-hmm. Do you know what your figures are?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the figure, but I can tell you that there's nothing, in terms of geometry numbers between like head angle, seat angle, there's nothing that's too far afield. You know, it's a 70-degree head angle, for instance, which isn't too far off of a more conventional bike. I think you'll find our bottom bracket numbers are in a similar range. You do need a certain, you know, we're still running, for instance, a normal length crank. This bike is a medium, it's spec'd with a 172.5 crank. So we haven't pushed any of the traditional numbers too far. And really, when you look at forward geometry, even with a longer top tube or reach figure, you wind up in a very similar position. It's really more about wheelbase, which gets a bit longer, and centering the rider's weight so that the bike feels more balanced overall. So there's a latch, opens up and swings out. And then inside there are 3 specific bags. So a small bag, essentially a medium-sized bag, which you can open up and you'll see that it's engineered, like in this case it's stuff, but CO2 in your plug kit, for instance. So multi-tool, plug kit, CO2, and then a larger bag that you can see here, which perfect for an inner tube or for a jacket. And of course you don't have to use the bag, so you can just stuff a jacket in there or gummy bears. But what I really love about this is you can run like a mid-size frame bag, have your bottle, and still have access to this stuff, which is really cool. So,
and then how about the hoses running in there? They are
not
away?
They are not fully like sleeved, but essentially there are guides that keep things.
Just keeps it to either side, so you can put the bag in the middle. Bags in the middle.
Yep. So there are some pluses and minuses. I would say I don't fully understand because I'm not a composites engineer, but those internal sleeves can create stress risers and things.
But since we've got a nice demo piece here, tell me about the carbon construction.
Sure. So we only use a premium grade carbon fiber, and all of our carbon frames are the same blend. So we don't do like a price point or spec versus a more premium carbon. Any carbon frame you get from us, you're getting the exact same frame. So colors might change, component spec will change, and that affects price, but at the end of the day, the frames are exactly the same. Every single frame that Mondraker makes in carbon, whether it's a gravel frame or a mountain bike frame, meets the ISO mountain bike standard and actually exceeds that by up to 20%. So we're very focused on not just durability, but compliance, ride quality, and how the bike feels.
How much more rigorous is the mountain bike ISO standard versus road, you know?
I do not. I do not.
Random trivia questions.
Yeah, I do not. And I actually haven't looked into that. But I can tell you that Mondraker makes the lightest mass-produced carbon hardtail frame in the world.
Okay, and that is what weight?
770 grams for a medium.
And what is this guy?
It's around 1,200 for a medium.
Okay.
And that includes, obviously you've got the down tube storage component.
Right.
But there wasn't a set weight target when this bike was being developed. It's very much about ride quality, compliance, the ability of the bike to absorb and manage vibration was the first consideration. So a lot of small pieces involved in layup in certain areas, and you can see some very deliberate work in terms of ID and carbon layup that creates both the aesthetic and the ride quality of this bike.
And where are the frames made?
In Asia. Yeah. All of our bikes, all of our frames are created in Asia, and all assembly happens in Spain. So frames are shipped to our headquarters in Elche, where they're individually, start to finish, assembled by one person.
Now you said you sized up one. How do you recommend riders who don't have a full bike fleet to try on to find an appropriately sized bike?
From my past, you and I have talked about this in other realms, fit is more than a set of numbers. I think it's really about finding a bike that feels good to you. So we only sell through shops. We don't sell direct online. So getting into a shop and swinging a leg over a bike is always the best test when you're going to spend money. You can definitely choose a medium frame, and nothing in the cockpit is proprietary or integrated. So for instance, the handlebar, stem, two-piece setup. Although we do have internal routing through the headset, it's not through the stem, so stem and bar swaps are easy. It's really, it's not a radical bike in that sense. So, you know, 5 sizes gives people a tremendous range, but I'm sure there will be people who want 10 millimeter longer stem or a shorter stem or a narrower bar. And we do offer a frame set in addition to complete bikes, so there's that option as well if people want to build with a more conventional frame size.
And these are house components, but as you said, it's all standard sizing, so if you like, you could swap out something else.
On-Off is our house component brand, and we do both carbon and aluminum components depending on the build spec. This is the highest end build spec S9 carbon bar that we designed and engineered in-house. It's made in a factory where other highly regarded premium aftermarket component brands are made. So the quality is second to none, and there's no compromises there. Currently, we offer this bike with 44 and 46 millimeter wide bars with a 16-degree flare. So nothing too extraordinary in the gravel space.
But 44 is the narrowest that it goes?
Currently.
At the
we're
hoods,
working
and then
on a
even wider
42,
there.
which we'll offer at a later date. It's just not done yet. So it is coming soon. But for most people, and again, with the philosophy of being an off-road company, the philosophy with the product team was a wider bar gives you more control, more comfort in rugged terrain, but again, easy enough to swap it out. You know, for me, there are certain situations where I love a flared bar. There are a lot of situations where I'd prefer a more conventional road-style bar with very modest or no flare. So having the ability to swap is really nice.
Becca prefers or is more accustomed to a narrower bar. That's kind of where I come from. But and so coming from a 40 bar, a 44 seems wide, but coming from the mountain bike side where 80 is nothing crazy, 44 seems pretty skinny, I guess.
Yeah, I ride about a 780 on a mountain bike. I mean, I'm 5'8", kind of average build, but I grew up racing cyclocross and mountain bikes, and so I always liked having a little more. I'm not looking for Aero. And the product team will tell you there was no thought about Aero on this bike. It's about comfort, it's about stability, and it's about capability, first and foremost.
Mondraker Arid. Where did the name come from?
So Mondraker's based in Alicante, which if you look at the Mediterranean region is a pretty arid climate. And when they think of gravel, they think of places like Arizona and just the western U.S. where, you know, you're out on a long ride, you know, dusty, dirt, you know, sweat, grit, you know, whether it's Unbound in Kansas, Patagonia down in Arizona, this idea that you can go a long way capably in tough climates under your own power was kind of a romantic theme around this bike and its development.
As a New Mexico boy who lives in Colorado, like dry conditions are what I know and appreciate.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tour, sir. I look forward to riding it.
Our pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
Now, Becca and Eric have loaned me the top-end model here to take and be riding that over the coming weeks and maybe months, so you can watch for a full review on this as I put some time on it. But in the meantime, as always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for subscribing. Now, turn your computer off, get your butt outside, or maybe inside if it's cold where you are, ride your bike.